Pick the Texans taking Deshaun Watson with number 25 and the Saints taking Patrick Mahomes with the 32nd pick. Max, what team most needs to draft a quarterback right now?
The team that most needs to draft it is the Texans. But the problem is this draft doesn't have any plug-and-play quarterbacks.
Right.
So the Texans really needed to acquire someone through free agency or a trade, and they failed to do it. Deshaun Watson, I love at 12 to Cleveland because I see him as 2 or 3 years holding the clipboard behind someone good, and then you have a franchise quarterback and a winner who didn't have to take a beating the first couple of years. So I love the idea of them grabbing him at 12. But the Texans taking him at 25, not a plug-and-play guy, and the Texans are a quarterback away right now.
Okay, first of all, the weather's been a little gloomy, little gray skies. And knowing Max, who's accustomed to Southern California or Las Vegas, you know, the sunshine, warm weather and all that stuff, you might be a little bit sick, the flu, little allergies, something like that. It might be that, or, you know, I just don't know. You forgot about no state income taxes in the state of Texas, and maybe that's the reason you're favoring the Texans. How in God's name could you sit up there and come up with the Houston Texans as much as they need a quarterback? How could you come up with them ahead of the Jets or the San Francisco 49ers? I know they need everything, but excuse me, who needs a quarterback more than San Francisco or the New York? Have I been watching? Have you been watching the same NFL that I've been watching? The New York Jets don't need a quarterback more than the Texans.
No, in fact,
Tom Savage could play as well as you, and he'd still be an improvement over the hell what the Jets have right now. You got to be crazy.
If the Jets had a quarterback right now, they wouldn't do anything with
it. That's not the point. That don't mean they don't need one.
It's the need.
The need.
Jets and the Niners are years away. And by the way, Cleveland, they're years away. You need a quarterback right this second now. Maybe you draft a guy who's not plug and play. I understand that. But the answer to the team who needs a quarterback right now, in other words, team that's just missing a quarterback,
I'm telling Mel Kiper on you. I'm telling Mel Kiper on you because Mel Kiper told you you need a quarterback before you do anything, and you clearly wasn't listening to Mel Kiper when he busted a quarterback on this show.
So hold up.
That's fair.
So hold up. You guys want
they're ready to win if they had a quarterback.
Right. You guys think the team that needs a quarterback is the team that needs everything. And I'm saying the team that needs a quarterback is the team that got everything but a quarterback.
Who's
right?
Thank you. They just like your haircut. That's all. Nobody listening to them. They ain't helping you. Go ahead, Donovan.
First of all, the Houston Texans in this situation, I think Tom Savage can do the job. All he has to do is don't turn the football over, complete 62% of his passes, and the defense will be able to win games for him. They're in a terrible conference. They're in a terrible division. I think for me, when I look at what the Houston Texans have, and don't sleep on Tom Savage. Remember, Tom Savage was a guy that had upside coming into the draft when he came out. All of a sudden, McShay and all those guys were talking about him. Now all of a sudden we're acting like he's a bum. He's a good player, but you have to give him an opportunity.
Win a Super Bowl with him?
Listen,
the Texans are ready to win a Super Bowl.
The Texans are ready to win a Super Bowl.
If they had a quarterback,
they're not ready to win a Super Bowl.
Don't they have?
Even though J.J. Watt will be able to finish a full season. Now all of a sudden we're
they had the best defense without him
over the last 5-6 weeks.
Over the last 5-6 weeks.
Where were they the first 12 weeks?
Hold up. So you have the best defense without J.J. Watt, and you might get 80% of J.J. Watt back. You think they're going to get worse?
Did you see their schedule and the they played?
Look, first of all, stay off of Google. I told you.
Hold up. They got a running back. They got the wide out. They have an okay offensive line. They got a great
man, they
I like O'Brien, but when has he ever developed a quarterback?
Right, okay.
When has he ever developed a quarterback to be the quarterback that we expect?
That's a fair question.
Now, let's go to the Jets. The Jets need a quarterback, yes.
And San Francisco.
But San Francisco, more importantly, because we have a new coaching regime, we have a new GM, you have to start your franchise out with a quarterback that you can at least rely on for over a decade. Then you build around him.
And by the way, if you want to bring up a team, that's potentially there but could use a quarterback, I'd roll with Minnesota because I ain't sold on Sam Bradford and Teddy Bridgewater was out. How come you didn't bring them up? They got a better shot than Houston.
No, they don't. But you have to have a quarterback. That's the whole thing. You have to have a quarterback.
But you're doing it backwards. Yes, every team needs a quarterback, so you can point to any team that doesn't have one and say they need one. I'm saying the team that most needs one is the team in the highest position of leverage, where that one position will make the difference between winning a Super Bowl and maybe not making the playoffs.
Let me ask you this, Max.
Of course the Jets need to go back. San Francisco does, Cleveland
What's the difference from a talent standpoint from what you've seen from the Houston Texans, from the Denver Broncos? If the Denver Broncos had a quarterback,
it's another good choice.
If the Denver,
I'll give you the difference.
No one is complaining about Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch.
I'll give you the difference.
It's the same that's going on in Houston.
Okay.
What's the difference between Trevor Siemian and maybe even Tom Savage?
I got an answer for you. John Elway has already shown the ability as a GM to get that franchise to the Super Bowl.
That's what Peyton Manning.
Hold on. Yeah, but last time that wasn't Peyton Manning. They won a Super Bowl with the ghost of Peyton Manning.
Was the one taking snaps. With
the remains of Peyton Manning.
I don't care if he completed 9 passes like Tim Tebow for 100-something passes. He won a Super Bowl.
Was it the offense or the defense that just won the Super Bowl?
It doesn't matter.
Peyton Manning was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league that year.
So you just answered the own question that you brought up.
Right.
So the reason the Houston Texans didn't win the Super Bowl is what? Because of the defense or the offense?
This is what I'm talking about, Donovan. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Elway, Broncos are a great choice. The difference is Elway has shown the ability to get to a Super Bowl with an offense without a defense, to win one with a defense without an offense. That's not the Texans. They don't have the same. They haven't been able to do it. So they need that quarterback.
How would you know what the hell the Texans are? They don't win, period. You don't know the reason.
Because they don't have a quarterback.
That's not the only reason.
No,
that's not the only reason. They got Lamar Miller last year. The year before that, they didn't have much of a running game. Even when Watt was there being the defensive player of the year, they had questions about their defense. He just brought up Bill O'Brien and how Bill O'Brien hasn't developed a quarterback. So what I'm saying to you is that it just seems to be a myriad of issues that invade the proceedings when it comes to the Houston Texans. And I'm saying to you, you're acting like, wait a minute, with a quarterback, they'd be straight butter. They played Indianapolis, they played Cincinnati, which was suspect. The Oakland Raiders without Derek Carter. They got all of these guys. Excuse me?
Was it butter or butter?
It doesn't matter.
Yo, Donovan.
Whatever works.
Donovan, they be stupid dope, yo. Yo, that would be the deafest team out. Straight butter.
But it's something that I know you're talking about the Houston Texans, and I think they have what it takes to possibly win, at least get to the AFC Championship.
Right.
Now, Brock Osweiler could have led him to the AFC Championship if he didn't turn the football over against New England. But I will say this. What's the difference between the Denver Broncos? You had 2 defensive ends that could get to the quarterback. Plus, you had another one in Shane Ray that you spent a round on.
Let's rewind that. They could have
They could have got to the AFC Championship.
If they had a better.
I said if he protected the football.
If they had a better, you heard him say, quarterback. Drop the mic.
But the defense.
Hold on.
Yeah, please.
You don't get to say that.
Right.
Oh, no?
Why? Because according to Max Kellerman, the Max Kellerman that I spoke to in the aftermath of conference championship games, he said that they win. No, they did not win. Did they go to the Super Bowl? No, they did not go to the Super Bowl. Every year somebody gets in the championship game. What does that mean? If you don't get to the Super Bowl, you didn't get it done. That's what you said. So now you're going to be in front of a live studio audience and just negate that you said that?
No, they didn't get it done because they did.
In other words, if it didn't mean anything months ago, it don't mean anything now. That's not a point to bring up, especially by you.
I thought the point was they didn't have a quarterback.
No, it's not just a quarterback.
This, right? That's the whole point.
I'm with you, Max.
Score the football.
Oh, come on now. Come on now.
I'm with you.
You ain't getting away with that.
By the way, we had a Freudian slip earlier. We went Jalen Adams rather than Jamal Adams. Of course, Jamal Adams, LSU, Jalen Adams,
the
UConn
basketball player.
Happy you gave UConn a shout out. Yeah. All right, we're going to have much more on the draft quarterbacks a little later in the show. We want you guys to weigh in. Who are you going, Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky? Get on Twitter, vote. We'll get into that a little bit later. Donovan will be back with us in just a moment. But up next, we're going to the hardcore. It's playoff time, folks. Mr. Triple-Double, Russell Westbrook, since OKC is where he wants to be. The NFL Draft is in the city of brotherly love, and so is First Take. We're here at Chickies and Pete's in South Philly, and let me just say, our First Take fam, they travel. This place is packed, and we absolutely love it. So hyped. It is draft day, folks, and we are loving being here.
I hate to tell Stephen A. something. I hate to tell you something. First Take fans are kind of like Cowboy fans, Stephen A. It's not just that they travel, it's that they're everywhere.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference between First Take fans and Cowboy fans. First Take fans care about winners. Remember that. Remember that. Don't ever.
Not here for winners.
Don't ever never confuse First Take fans with Cowboy fans. First Take fans would never tolerate 22 years of mediocrity. It would not happen.
That is true.
It would not happen.
We so appreciate all of you guys coming out. Thank you so much. It's so fun when we have a live crowd. But we got a special treat for you here. Do you see this empty chair?
That's right.
Am I right? You know who that's
Where's
for?
my man?
Philly greatness, Donovan McNabb. Get out here. There he is. Looking clean in the three-piece.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Grab a seat.
Now this is what I'm talking about, Artie.
What's up, big time?
Well, I just happened to hear the conversation that was going on about these great fans of Philadelphia. Yes, they care about winners.
That's right.
No Cowboy fans here.
None.
No
I
question.
saw one. I see one.
He doesn't count.
There's always one just floating around somewhere.
In the weeds?
Security will remove any Cowboy fan.
All right.
Okay?
Relax.
At my discretion. At my discretion. They will be removed.
All right.
All right.
It's draft day. We ready to do this?
Let's do this.
All right, let's work. So the Cleveland Browns have not been exactly the model of success when it comes to the draft. They had 14 picks last year, and it had little effect on the record. 26 different starters at quarterback since 1999. At this point, it seems like the Browns are deciding between defensive end Myles Garrett and quarterback Mitch Trubisky. Stephen, I'll start with you. What should the Browns do with that #1 overall pick?
Well, first of all, let's focus on what they shouldn't do. They shouldn't draft a quarterback. In 1999, it's very, very important to point out, very important draft in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, because the #2 overall pick in that draft happens to be sitting next to me, Donovan McNabb. Now, let me be very, very clear. It's very, very important. The Cleveland Browns of all organizations should pay rapt attention to today's draft. They better not make this mistake again. They better not screw it up, because they had the #1 overall pick in that 1999 NFL draft. And who did they pick? Tim Couch. Last time I checked, the man probably delivers couches. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's not quarterbacking.
Do you mean to tell me that Donovan McNabb had a better career than Tim
Yes,
Couch?
I'm
sure you want to go out on that limb?
I think so. I think I'm going to go out on that limb. But let me take this a step further, because we pointed out 26 quarterbacks in the last 18 years. Let me throw something out. Did y'all know that also the Cleveland Browns in their history, they had an opportunity to get Julio Jones. They traded that guy for 5 picks. 5 picks. Sounds like a good deal, right? But check out who the picks were, Max. Trent Richardson, Brandon Weeden, Phil Taylor, Greg Little, and some two, Owen Marisico. I don't know what the hell this meant. I think that's the appropriate pronunciation for his name. My point is, these are not individuals that were known for having an impact, certainly not to the level of Julio Jones. So we've got that going on. We've got only 2 players from the 2014 NFL draft, first round. Only 2 players are out of the NFL that were picked in the first round. Both of them were Cleveland Browns. Right. Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel. I mean, everywhere you turn ain't nothing but an aptitude. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. So if Cleveland is smart, don't draft a damn quarterback. Go with the safe bet. You need an edge rusher. You were second fewest in sacks last year. Myles Garrett is the man that you have to snatch, because everybody has said he's the #1 talent in the draft. You've got to play it safe. You've got 2 first-round, 2 second-round, 2 third-round picks. You got 22 picks over the next 2 damn years. Don't mess it up. Take somebody that's a guarantee. Myles Garrett seems to be the closest thing to that.
Well, I'll say this. First of all, I have an answer for who they should draft, but let me start by talking about what you just brought up. The problem with an organization like Cleveland is not only that they don't, or haven't in recent years, identified talent like a team, say, like the Patriots, who seems to know exactly what they're looking at. But once you get that talent, you need a system in place where you know what kind of player you're looking for, how they fit in, and then you need to coach them up. Then you need to develop them. So Cleveland has been lacking in all those areas. If you have the #1 overall pick, what you cannot do is take a flyer. You can't take a flyer like, oh, I like this guy's upside. That would be Trubisky. right? You're taking a flyer. 13 games, you don't know. Now, I know they may be burnt from last year, or Carson Wentz, because a little bit of a similar circumstance. You know, what teams is he really playing against? I know people like the cut of his jib, but we don't really know. And so they may be feeling burnt. Oh, we need to grab the quarterback. I disagree. They have a lot of holes to fill. Yep. They're picking multiple times in the first round. Right. I like Deshaun Watson at 12, so, I mean, I think that's great.
Who do you like at number 1?
At number 1, you need high upside, but you're not banking on the highest upside. You want the highest upside with also the highest low side.
You're making me very nervous.
He ain't going to be bad.
Who's number 1?
The answer is your guy, Jalen Adams. He's the guy, the safety. You listen to
Jalen Adams.
Yes, you listen to Louis Riddick and guys like that. I have yet to hear one question mark about that guy. All I hear is he's going to be excellent for like 10 years, and some people think he's going to be great. So you take a guy where you cannot miss. The worst he's going to be is really good, and the best he's going to be is great. You don't take
Max,
a flyer.
let me go ahead and pull this needle out so I can bust your bubble. You'll never draft a safety as the number 1 pick.
I was getting ready to go there.
Secondly,
Thank you.
I love where you were going with Trubisky. Trubisky, to me, is more of a mid-first round to late first-round draft pick. Now, I know everyone wants to get excited about his upside, but what is his upside? What, the fact that he played 13 games and he played a pretty decent year? That's not an upside because of his size. Well, he's not Andrew Luck, so we can stop talking about his mobility. We can stop talking about his arm strength. That means nothing. Deshaun Watson is a winner. The number 1 pick to me should be Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle from Alabama. Can play the inside, be disruptive for a lot of defenses. He's more of a Richard Seymour, and we've seen what Richard Seymour did in New England and also in Oakland toward the end of his career.
But if you take a defensive tackle, then you better get Aaron Donald. You're criticizing a safety as the number 1 pick.
Everyone criticized Aaron Donald because he's only 6 feet. But the thing is, you have to have an identity for this football team. What is the identity for this football team? We don't know. We don't even know what type of defense they're trying to run. We don't know what offense they're going to run. So if you're trying to get a quarterback or the outside linebacker, maybe a defensive end, yeah, he can rush the passes, but sometimes he's going to have to drop in the zone.
Right.
There's going to be some times where he's going to have to be double teamed. Can he handle the double team?
I thought Allen should have won the Heisman, to tell you the truth. Well, but I don't know if I would take him number 1 overall.
Is he an Ndamukong Suh? No, he's not, but he's very close to being Ndamukong Suh if he's healthy. So that's why I say the safe pick is Jonathan Allen, and then you can build around him.
Here's the deal. Your definition of safe is different than mine, because when I'm thinking about it, first of all, let's be real about something here. You get word of mouth. It does matter, particularly in the NFL, because everybody has to take into consideration the noise that's reverberating everywhere. And when you hear the noise about the overall talent, you hear Myles Garrett. You hear that there is a distinction between him and Jonathan Allen. I think Jonathan Allen is big time. Yeah. Obviously, roll tide, baby. He played with Alabama. He has cachet. We understand that.
Sometimes I think he went to Alabama.
You know what? I wish I would have. I wish I would have, and I wish I had about 150 more pounds on me. I could have played football. But here's the reality of the situation. That is not reality. And when we look at it from this perspective in terms of Myles Garrett, if the aficionados are proclaiming that there is a difference, talent-wise, impact-wise, on the NFL level between Garrett and Jonathan Allen, I got to listen to that. Now, Donovan McNabb, I got to defer to this brother right here because he knows football, and I'm looking at it from the standpoint, if you're saying that the talent level is comparable, then I get you. But if there is a discrepancy where you point, let me get to your point, because you poured out, hey, you can't take a flyer. I agree with that. The flip side to it is that you don't have to have a system and a scheme for the number 1 overall pick. For the number 1 overall pick, it's about who the best talent is.
Okay.
And we've been hearing Garrett. We've been hearing Garrett.
I don't think it's just the best talent. I think it's the best talent with the fewest question marks. The most surefire thing, you ain't going to mess up. You're going to have him for 7, 8, 10 years at an elite level. Like, if you knew you could get Earl Thomas with the number 1 pick, you wouldn't take that even though he's a safety?
Well, Garrett, the question about Garrett is his mode in terms, his want to, which is a big deal, but it's never been about his talent.
The reason I like about him covering the slot. I know we like to talk about his ability and be able to cover the slot. I still question that on the NFL level. Collegiate level, yeah, you're playing against the 3rd wide receiver. But in the NFL level, he may be the best wide receiver, but they put him in the slot.
Now, I don't mind the defensive tackle point of view. I'm just saying it's inconsistent with the idea. You don't take a safety. Well, then don't take a D tackle. Everyone talks about the edge rusher. You got to have an elite edge rusher. That's because the quarterback is so important. So first quarterback, then elite edge rusher. But I do agree with the point of view that guy in the middle, if you can get a dominant player in the middle to collapse the pocket, that's the whole shooting match. That takes mediocre edge rushers and makes them better. That makes your entire defense
But that doesn't address your point about the safety, because, listen, I'm a big fan of Adams. You know the brother's big time at LSU. Right. My point to you is Donovan talked about that safety position. The reason I don't like a safety at number 1 is because I I think that you can avoid them.
Yes.
I think that you can
Yes.
you can basically neutralize them and make them unimpactful. It's almost like the center fielder that's out there and somebody's hitting singles all day.
Safety.
That's what I'm saying.
Safety.
That's my problem with safety.
Why are you passing on Garrett?
The thing about it, look, you look through his career, and I know Booger McFarland broke it down, and I listen to Booger McFarland because he's a defensive lineman who understands what he's looking at. And when I'm playing against a defensive lineman, is there a way that we can block him one-on-one? Now, in the NFL, he's going against some of the best tackles in the game. All backside tackles, meaning the left tackles, are supposed to be the best athlete on that offensive line. Can he get around him one-on-one? Now, he'll be double-teamed because he's the #1 pick. But if you have an interior defensive lineman that would just disrupt everything you do offensively, a Warren Sapp, an Ndamukong Suh, a Sean Gilbert back in the day, or put Reggie inside sometime, Reggie White.
If you think that's Jonathan Allen, but my big point is if you don't think that's Jalen Adams, fine. My point is if you're picking #1, particularly if you're the Cleveland Browns, forget about need, forget about who has the highest upside. You cannot miss with the #1
You can't
pick.
miss.
You better take a Pro Bowl caliber player.
But both of y'all, you can't miss. You're absolutely right. But let me get back to your point about Jonathan Allen. I give you the Warren Sapp and Ndamukong Suh. I get all of that. When they talk about Myles Garrett, they talk about his speed. And I think that when you're talking about a dude that can disrupt you because of his speed, because clearly no matter how big you are, no matter how strong you are, there's going to be an offensive lineman that's bigger and stronger with them big beer belly dudes rolling around and meat potato. I mean, come on now.
Talk about my meat hooks like that.
It's just the truth, damn it. It ain't an insult, but it's the truth. All I'm saying is speed negates and neutralizes all of that. When I think about Jonathan Allen, I think about size, I think about power.
Yes.
When I think about Garrett, I think about speed. What's the biggest disruptor? Speed. Jadeveon Clowney has elevated himself in our mind's eye over the last season because of his speed. His motor, and his want-to and the injury. We question that. Not size, though.
I like collapsing the pocket. That's a good idea.
Absolutely. You know, when you're a quarterback and that pocket's coming into your chest,
a whole different ball game.
A whole different ball game.
That's true.
Myles Garrett, Jonathan Allen, Jalen Adams. There it is. Let's get to the offensive side of the ball and talk a little quarterbacks, gentlemen. So Todd McShay with his final mock draft is out right now ahead of the draft tonight. And here's how he has the quarterback shaking out going in the first round. He has the Browns taking Mitchell Trubisky. But first, I want to address something that is very important to all of us right here. It's a very dark time after several of our colleagues have been affected by ESPN layoffs. And I want to say these folks have done tremendous work contributing to make ESPN the brand that it is. And my heart also goes out not only to them, but to their families, their loved ones that are affected by this. And obviously, I want to hear your thoughts, guys.
Well, let me first say this. I've been working here since 2003. I'm honored to be a member of the ESPN family. My heart goes out to my colleagues out there who lost their jobs here at the company. They've spent years doing absolutely outstanding work, and they're responsible for what ESPN has become. And I think it's incredibly important that we all recognize that. But I also want America to recognize that a lot of these individuals that are gone are incredibly talented. And in the end, they will land on their feet because they're sensational at what they do. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with them. My heart goes out to them, but I'm incredibly confident that they will, they will resurrect their careers in some kind of capacity because ESPN has tremendous talent. We always have had. And those individuals that are gone, they will be back in some capacity, whether it's for this company or for somebody else, because they're too talented not to be.
A lot of excellent people and excellent professionals whose work product has been outstanding for so long. I concur.
No question. So they will be missed, but of course looking forward to seeing them continue to shine on another platform very soon. But it is also, of course, playoff time, gentlemen, so we need to get into that. And we start with Russell Westbrook. And his Thunder may have gotten bounced in 5, but their short playoff run isn't deterring Russ from keeping his talents in OKC.
Everybody know that I like Oklahoma City and I love being here. And, I love everybody here. But I haven't even thought about that. I'm worried about making sure my wife is all right and moving forward with that. Everything else really doesn't matter at this point. And that's the most important thing right now and me moving forward.
Very sweet. Stephen A., what do you make of Russell Westbrook's comments?
I don't think they were that wise. It's not to knock Russell Westbrook in any way. He's probably going to win league MVP. He averaged a triple-double. He's been sensational this year. There's no denying that. Here's where the issue gets interesting as it pertains to Russell Westbrook. You are playing for an organization with an executive named Sam Presti, who obviously is very well respected, but there have been flaws. Whether it's due to ownership and Clay Bennett and what he has demanded, or whether it has been to his judgment. Let's put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. On the same roster, Oklahoma City had Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Serge Ibaka, and Reggie Jackson. At one point in time, all of them were on the squad together. None of them were over 23. Durant and Westbrook were 23. Ibaka and Harden were 22. Reggie Jackson was 21. This is when they went to the finals. And somehow, some way, Kevin Durant walks out the door.
For nothing.
James Harden, I want to put this in perspective. James Harden is gone over $4 million. Not $4 million a year. $4 million total. You lost out on James Harden. Over a billionaire didn't want to come up with $4 million. You got that. You trade Serge Ibaka. You acquire Victor Oladipo. That didn't really work out that much because Serge Ibaka's still playing, and playing well, by the way. You look at the bevy of talent that you have as an organization. I have to question why all of them left, or why all of them wanted to leave and you moved some and others left. And so I'm looking at Presti, and I'm looking at Bennett, the owner, and I'm saying, if I were playing for an organization that lost that level of talent, I might want to stay, Max. I really might still want to stay. I'll be damned if I'm telling you. I'm going to keep that to myself because I need to see what you're going to do. Are you going to sit up here and exhaust me, don't even have the decency to surround me with shooters? Are you going to max me out prematurely where my career is cut short because I'm only human? I can't do every year what I did this year, averaging a triple-double. I'm not saying Russell Westbrook shouldn't feel the way they feel because you want to be where you want to be. I'm just saying you got to exercise business sense sometimes and know when to keep stuff to yourself and just chill, just to see what they're going to do, rather than giving them the cushion of being able to say, well, he said he wanted to stay, so I don't really have to prioritize getting him that elite talent and chasing the championship. I could just be respectable and compete.
You got to incentivize them to put some talent around you. First of all, I'm going to make a point right now that you made yesterday, since you just made a point that I've been making for a while. I mean, that Oklahoma City team is going to go down, I think, as the most talented team in the history of American team sports to never win a championship. That should have been a dynasty. You have 3 MVP caliber players eventually who are already excellent in Durant and Westbrook and Harden, plus another perennial all-star caliber talent in Serge Ibaka. And you mentioned Reggie Jackson. All on the same team in their early 20s, and you make one finals and let them all walk out the door. I've been saying that for a while. I want to bring up a point you made yesterday, I think it was. It's Clay Bennett. When you look at the issue here, a robber, the owner, a robber baron, or an oil baron, excuse me, Freudian slip, an oil baron who stole the team from Seattle. And what do you have going for you if you're Oklahoma City? It's not the market that's going to attract people. It's a small town. It's not New York or L.A. or Miami or a place like that. It's not a big, sexy market. What you have is the ability to pay more than the other teams if you're willing to pay a luxury tax. The way the NBA is set up, it's that if a small market is willing to spend money, they can keep the team together because these guys can make more money there than elsewhere. And he has been unwilling to do it. He's cheap. And because he's cheap, Oklahoma City doesn't have a squad. So when Russell Westbrook comes out and says, this is where I want to be, to me, Stephen A., that doesn't cost him anything. He didn't come out and say, I guarantee you I'm never going to leave Oklahoma City. He said, this is where I want to be, and I believe he's telling the truth. Now, the fact that in a couple of years, I believe he's going to want to get out to L.A. or someplace like that.
It should be L.A. or New York.
Right. It's because the owner's cheap. It's a bad owner. An excellent GM in Sam Presti, the mistakes notwithstanding, because Presti didn't get any shooters for him this year, but when you look at the talent Presti's identified, it's amazing. But a cheap and bad owner, and therefore a bad place for Russell Westbrook in the long run.
Important point to point out here. We all know that I'm absolutely disgusted that the superstar that is Kevin Durant decided to go to a 73-19 and jump on that gravy train. That ticks me off. But having said all of that, let me say this. Here is a moment where we have to be fair to Kevin Durant and possibly let him off the hook in this regard. So much has been made about what the relationship was with Russell Westbrook. That's Kevin Durant's fault because you never called him or went to see him to say goodbye. And you brought that shrapnel of criticism in your direction because you brought up that skepticism by handling it the way that you handled it. But the interesting part about Kevin Durant is now we have to sit here and say, Sam Presti, Clay Bennett, how much did you have to do with Kevin Durant walking out the door? Because if we're sitting here and noticing that Harden and Ibaka and Jackson and others are gone, could you imagine what Kevin Durant noticed? These are the kind of things that we have to pay attention to, because in Golden State, we have a situation where Joe Lacob and those boys, Steph Curry ain't going nowhere, Klay Thompson ain't going nowhere, Draymond Green ain't going nowhere.
It looks like a wise move.
The fact of the matter is, if you're an owner of an NBA team, a lot of times that's a vanity play. In other words, you're not always going to try to optimize your profits every year because, first of all, the equity, the whole league becomes more valuable. So your franchise, these guys buy it for a couple $100 million, sell it for a couple billion. That's happening. And also, for some, it's a vanity play. They're rich guys. This is their toy. They get to have a toy. Clay Bennett is treating the Oklahoma City Thunder primarily as a business. Now, you may say there's nothing wrong with that. It's his right to optimize profits, too. Well, that's fine. But when you're being compared to other owners, you know, and I bring up Dan Gilbert, and I don't think he's a very good owner, but you're right, he is at least willing to pay the luxury tax in Cleveland. You're being compared to other owners who are willing sometimes to not optimize profits that year in order to give that town a winner, because they know in the long run they're going to sell for multiples of what they bought it for. That makes you, relative to the other owners, a bad owner.
Here's a simpler way of putting it. You have some owners who really, really want to win championships. And you have some owners where it would be nice, but what I really want to do is just be in the picture while also monitoring my dollars. If I'm competing every year, even if I don't win, I'm in the argument. Therefore, I've satisfied my constituency, my fan base. I
sell out the arena every night.
Real quick, because we have to go to break, though. But on that point you just made, how about Russell Westbrook? Does that at all make you think him wanting to stay, that he doesn't necessarily care that much about a championship?
Well, here's the deal. What Russell Westbrook eventually is going to be forced to look in the mirror about is, you do, first of all, no one would ever question his effort.
We know his heart.
His heart.
Of course.
But you do have people who believe he prioritizes numbers as well as everything else. So now that you've accomplished league MVP, because he's going to win that, and you was a scoring champion and all of this other stuff, what else is there left to do individually? At some point in time, we're going to sit up there and say to Russell Westbrook, all right, bro, now it's time to win.
Look,
don't ask him that.
Oscar Robertson, one of the greatest players ever, didn't get a chip until Kareem showed up and he got one. You know, I mean,
but he doesn't want to be in that conversation.
Russell Westbrook had Kevin Durant for 8 years.
Yep, that's true. There's no doubt about it.
All right.
We'll take a break from basketball. When we come back, of course, we're in Philly for the NFL draft. The Eagles found the quarterback of the future last season after taking Carson Wentz with the second overall pick. So what can we expect from Philly in the NFC East? And Booger McFarland has strong comments regarding some of the controversial figures in tonight's draft. First take on the road in Philly. On 51 of the Wizards' points, the home team has won all 5 games this series. Stephen A., did you want to mention something before I got into the question?
Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to mention something because an absolute taboo took place just now via text message.
What?
I got a text message from one of your very own people, an NBA champion by the name of Rasheed Wallace. And this brother, Rasheed Wallace, with those hairdos he usually wears, with those outfits, his definition of sharp suits as a T-shirt and an old blazer. He had the audacity, Max Kellerman, to criticize my wardrobe.
The check on check.
Listen, I'm stepping out. Rasheed, well, how dare you? You should take notes. You should take lessons. Let me teach you how to dress. What's that show with him and Kevin Garnett? What 21? What is it again? On TNT or something? I don't know what the hell it is.
I don't know the name, but I see him.
Area 21. Area 21. I love both of them dearly. I got mad love and respect for them. But they could use wardrobe tips. I just want to say that.
Thank you, Fashion Police.
He was the difference in 04.
Listen, they're champions. They're both champions. KG's a future Hall of Famer. I love them both, and I ain't getting on KG. But Rasheed Wallace, they're talking about my wardrobe.
You have to understand.
Oh my God, him.
Don't take it personally. He's comparing you to me, so of course you don't. I mean, that's the way it is.
I do understand you do dress better because you wear the same suit every day. You know what I'm saying? But let's move on.
Very carefully. This is a little bit lighter shade of blue.
Too much money for your own good. Let's get into the Wizards, gentlemen.
Right.
Stephen A., are you more confident in Washington now? I know how much you love this team.
I am more confident in them. Listen, I was very, very down on them after they fell. They lost. The first two games, the last two games, games 3 and 4 in Atlanta. The series was tied 2-2. Paul Millsap was giving it to him. Markieff Morris was chirping a little bit. You got to back it up. Don't talk. Got to back it up. Your first playoff series ever. You're talking about a perennial all-star in a Paul Millsap. You got to watch your mouth. Show some respect. Okay? He has to do that. But John Wall is big time. Bradley Beal is big time. Otto Porter, Bogdanovich, and these boys can shoot the basketball. Lamont Gortat finds a way to be relevant because when Atlanta goes small, he don't know what to do with himself. I think Scott Brooks needs to stop trying to stay big when Atlanta goes small. You might want to transition and go small yourself. Put Markieff Morris at the 5, okay? Make him at the 5 and do something with Wall and Beal and Bogdanovich and Otto Porter. Go small against Atlanta. Make sure you can match their speed. But in the end, the bottom line is this. When I think about the Cleveland Cavaliers, clearly the class of the Eastern Conference, I'm thinking about who can beat them. I don't, as good as Toronto is, Max, I don't believe in them because of their perimeter shooting.
Right.
When you're going up against LeBron and those boys, you need to be able to shoot from threes. And that, to me, is not the Toronto Raptors. I think Washington can do that, and that's why I like what I'm seeing from Washington, at least in the last game.
I understand that. I want to address that. But first, let me just say, I think if you start talking about this series and these teams, you have to say John Wall's name first.
That's right.
This dude is as good as anyone at the position right now.
How long have I been saying that?
People talk about Steph and Westbrook and Harden, and they deserve it. These are such great players. Kyrie, John Wall is right there. Who has the best crossover in the game right now? Anyone got a better crossover than John Wall?
I would say Kyrie. I would say Kyrie.
By the way, I would say Kyrie. I would say maybe. Who's the fastest player with the ball in the game? John Wall. Who's the best change of pace player? John Wall. This guy.
And mixed reviews from the crowd on
and he is, well, because there are a lot of great choices.
And he defends better than Kyrie.
And he defends better than all of them. And he can get to the basket at will. He makes good decisions with the ball. He's a great passer. What a player. In terms of this series, though, I am not more confident right now in Washington than I was, because the reason they won that game is because Atlanta was missing wide open shots. That's not something they're doing. That's Atlanta blowing it. And Atlanta's no great shakes. I mean, they're all right.
Wait a minute.
They're all right.
I mean, Schrader can make. I mean, he's been playing very, very well. Here's the flip side. The other dudes were open because you could afford to leave them open because you knew they were bricklayers.
Well, I don't know. When you look at the Washington team, some of these guys, Otto Porter and these guys, some of them are supposed to hit shots. Well, we're talking about Atlanta. Yeah, we're talking about Atlanta.
Right.
Anyway, but getting to the Washington team, Otto Porter, even Bradley Beal, obviously Gortat, all those guys, you can rely
I love Bradley Beal.
Me too, but you can rely on one dude to be a superstar when you need him to be, because he's the only superstar on the team, and that's John Wall. Bradley Beal, excellent player. None of the other players are special. They're role players. They're short one special player to compete with Cleveland.
Let me throw this at you. I want to hear what you think about this, Max. We're not going to compare him to a Steph Curry or anything like that. But I watched Bradley Beal, and I'm like, And then I see 30.
Right.
27, 50% shooting, 45% for three-point range. And I'm going like this. Well, damn, I have to pay attention to this.
Yep.
The dude just goes out there. He seems relatively undersized, but when it goes up, it usually goes in, and I have to give him respect for that.
Me too. And if they had at least one other player at least as good as Bradley Beal, now you got me. Well, now I'm going to say, okay, Washington, but they don't have that.
But we're not saying, remember what we're asking here. We're not talking about who's going to beat Cleveland, because we don't believe anybody will.
Right.
What we're saying is who has the best shot.
Let me tell you why it's Toronto.
And I think it's Washington.
Toronto has a deeper, better front court. Now, I agree with this. Usually you look at series among evenly matched teams, more or less. You say, give me the team with the best player on it. That's John Wall. I mean, the Greek freak, but Milwaukee, I don't think is quite ready.
He can't shoot yet.
Right. Milwaukee in a couple years is going to run the league if things bounce their way a little bit. But
they
right now,
they won't stay in Milwaukee.
Right, maybe. They're not quite ready. John Wall is the most special player on the contenders not named Cleveland. So, I get that. But Toronto is deeper and better in the front court. They have an excellent backcourt. And I'll tell you something else, Stephen A. You're right. They don't shoot the three. They don't have that kind of game. Remember the Mayweather-Maidana fight?
Yes.
How Maidana was able to really shake them up and win some rounds and make it a close, tough fight? The reason I think that is Maidana doesn't throw punches in traditional classical ways. They come in awkward angles. And Mayweather's defense, which is designed to pick off shots from a boxer, isn't ready for these weird angles. They're not supposed to cut. That's kind of like Toronto's offense right now. Defenses are not designed to stop an offense that looks like Toronto. So you're right about them not shooting it well enough, at least, compared to some of the other backcourts. But that may actually, in a weird way, be an advantage because they're zigging while everyone else is zagging.
Here's the only point that you're missing. Kyle Lowry struggles at times inconsistently during the playoffs. Do you know why? Because he's usually facing Washington and Wall. That's your problem. If you're going to face a guy that's a big guard who can defend plus give you the business, you now have a problem. And Toronto goes where Lowry takes them. DeMar DeRozan is no joke. He can ball. But they don't go anywhere that Lowry does not take them.
Oh, listen, if you swapped John Wall and Kyle Lowry, then Toronto might win the whole, at least get to the finals. That's not the case, I agree, but I still say Toronto gives Cleveland their best.
Game 6 Friday in Atlanta. The home team has won every game this series. We'll see if they can even it up.
By the way, Atlanta will win Game 6 because Washington still remains undisciplined, and Washington will come back to the nation's capital and win Game 7 and advance to the next round.
The bold prediction, folks, but we are in Philly for the NFL draft. When we come back, Donovan McNabb, where is he? He's going to come back out here. Many consider Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Watson the best quarterbacks in this draft class, but could another signal caller eventually be best in show? We will discuss it up next. We are here in Philly, so we have to talk NFC East. What do the Eagles, Cowboys, Redskins, and Giants need to take in the...
I have no idea whatsoever why Deshaun Watson is being rated lower than Mitch Trubisky. Maybe Donovan McNabb can explain it to me, Max. Maybe.
And also Mollywood coming up, where the fans, a lot of First Take fans, get to ask your questions.
Mollywood.
4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, you got me.
Shout out to the Eagles cheerleaders. Thank you, ladies. The NFC East has not had a repeat champion since the Eagles in 2004. This division always up for grabs, and we saw what a difference the draft was for last year's champion, Stevie A's Dallas Cowboys. Now, according to our Todd McShay, he has the Eagles taking wideout Mike Williams with the 14th pick, the Redskins taking running back Dalvin Cook with the 17th pick, the Giants taking offensive tackle Garrett Bowles, and the Cowboys taking cornerback Tre'Davious White with the 28th pick. On that note, someone who knows a little bit about Philly in the NFC East, Donovan McNabb, back with us. So good to have you, as always.
Thank you for having me.
Max, I'll start with you. How important is this draft for the NFC East?
I don't think it's actually very, because you look at the 3 real contenders in this division. It's always Washington is like, yeah, whatever. But the other 3 you got to pay attention to. They're stout on one side of the ball or the other. And if you really break it down case by case, it's not like Dallas last year where, like, they really have everything on offense. If they have a backup quarterback and a running back, and they get them both, right? I don't see that in this draft, especially since none of these teams are picking extremely high in the first round. Maybe if Dallas traded up and took Myles Garrett and they had a guy like that, but I don't see that happening. And Jerry Reese for the Giants needs to fix the offensive line. He has not shown the ability to do that at all through the draft. So, and he's usually not getting the #1 preference on the offensive line because he's never traded up in the first round. He's never done that. So I don't see the Giants doing that. I don't see Jerry Reese necessarily getting he does other things well, but the O-line right, even if he did. I don't see the Cowboys getting a guy like Myles Garrett. I don't see anyone making a move for a difference maker high up in the draft, and that's what it would take to swing this division through the draft this
when
year.
You're talking about the draft within the NFC East, I think the team that we got to keep our eyes on are the Washington Redskins. Right. Keep your mind. Listen, you got the Philadelphia Eagles with the number 14 overall pick. Everybody talking about when they might draft a corner, or they might decide to go Mike Williams out of Clemson as a wide receiver. They better hope and pray. If you're the Washington Redskins, you should hope and pray that the Eagles pass on him so you can acquire him. Because even though you've got Doxson and Crowder and others, you lost Deshaun Jackson. You've lost Pierre Garçon. Those those two individuals who are veterans, you got Kirk Cousins. He's franchise tagged again. You know, he's got that money coming to him, getting paid $24 million, all right? But still in all, devoid of the long-term commitment that he really, really wanted, there was some trepidation in terms of his relationship with upper management. You've got receivers that you have to ensure. You've got this kid, Jordan. You got to wonder about his durability. You got to wonder what they're going to do at the running back spot. Plus, you've got questions on defense. Dallas is going to be Dallas because of that offensive line and that running game. And Dak, we believe in them. The Eagles are going to be better because Alshon Jeffrey and who knows who else they'll get. And I think Carson Wentz got potential. I like Carson Wentz. The Giants pricked up Brandon Marshall, and their defense had already vastly improved from the year before.
But they need to shore up that O-line, the tight end position.
Of course they do. But the biggest question mark is the Washington Redskins.
Right.
They can fall off the map in that division if they don't address this draft adroitly.
You know, I look at it in a sense, we talk about the top teams, obviously, offensively. You look offensively in the Dallas Cowboys and what they're able to do with Ezekiel Elliott and obviously Dak Prescott. You look at the Washington Redskins. Kirk Cousins still put up great numbers, even with a lack of run game. And then Deshaun Jackson leaving, and we don't know about Pierre Garçon, but then they still have pieces that can fill right into that void. So, to me, they're probably the second best offense. The New York Giants bringing in Brandon Marshall, that adds another piece of the puzzle because he can play outside and inside. Shepard, I think, is going to be a star in that offense. And also, now you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, I wonder about their running game. Darren Sproles is getting up there in age. He's going to retire after this season. They need someone who can carry the load at least 25 times a game to take pressure off of Carson Wentz. Torrey Smith coming in, Alshon Jeffries, you talk about it, but what type of players are they going to be? The same type of players that were pretty much almost Pro Bowlers, guys that can get downfield and stretch the field for a guy like Carson Wentz, and then will Zach Ertz stay healthy enough to control the middle of the football field? To me, the question is more about the defensive side for all of the teams that we've mentioned. You know, the Dallas Cowboys, if they had a defense and pass rush to get to the quarterback, maybe they beat the Green Bay Packers and make it to the NFC Championship, which they were my pick to make it to the NFC Championship because of their offense, but defensively, they're suspect. The Washington Redskins, same thing. You lose your nose tackle, then you bring in, you have a guy like Josh Norman who can cover one side of the field, but do they have enough to get to the quarterback? Do they have enough to get off the field on third down? I don't believe so.
That's what I mean. This last year's draft was determinative in the NFC East. In other words, the result of the draft showed up in the division in terms of determining the division. They got Ezekiel Elliott to run behind that offensive line. They got a young quarterback who got to step in when Romo inevitably obviously got hurt very early before the season began, and they were off to the races. The Eagles found their franchise quarterback. That was a huge draft. I don't see this draft having that effect on the division.
You know what resonates with me, though, when you bring up defense? I'm looking for a mystique-altering figure on the defensive side in the draft, and I'm thinking you think about the linebackers. Reuben Foster might fall to somebody because of questions about him. And we also, and by the way, we're here in Philadelphia, but I'm not bringing up his name just because we're here in Philadelphia. Watched a little bit of the Senior Bowl, saw how this dude performed, spoke to the expert extraordinaire himself, Mel Kiper. No one that I've spoken to, whether it's him, McShay, or anybody else, can stop raving about Hassan Reddick out of Temple. This kid can ball. And so when you look at him or Reuben Foster, if one of those teams within the NFC East can get their hands on one or two of those guys, it can change some things.
Well, let me add to that, because now we're in Philadelphia, and obviously I follow my team, and I bleed green and silver.
You know about Philly.
The whole thing about it. When I look at this football team, if they have another pass rusher, they get another pass rusher, they get a corner, and also I'm going to add a safety to that mix. If Adams drops to 14, you cannot pass on him. I think when you look at
Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams.
I don't think he'll drop to 14.
But see, this
he won't drop to 14.
Because when the Philadelphia Eagles were very successful, we made some plays happen on offense. Brian Westbrook, myself, we brought in some other key players. But when you have a guy on defense like a
Brian
Dawkins, Weapon X.
Brian
the
Dawkins,
hitman.
Although Jim Johnson, late great Jim Johnson, is no longer the defensive coordinator, but they have a valuable defensive coordinator here. If you have a guy that can be disruptive, you have Fletcher Cox, your defensive tackle, defensive end. He's able to get to the quarterback. But you bring it up. If Reuben Foster is available, you cannot pass.
Yeah, but you're right. In other words, it's possible that the draft has that effect. But these three teams that we're talking about, really the three contenders.
It's about defense.
Right, and it's also about a little luck in the draft. You have to hope guys
I'm surprised you said defense for the Giants. I feel like they shored that up last year.
But they didn't show up against Green Bay. They didn't show. They they put a lot of first half don't win you football games, as you can
Aaron
tell.
Rodgers, brother, what are you going to do?
Well, the thing is get
balance
pressure on them.
offensively.
It's about getting pressure on quarterbacks. Now, we're not talking so much about, these top quarterbacks like you like to bring up Eli Manning all the time, like he is outstanding, which I
only in the Super Bowl. Sorry.
Yeah, you got to
only
get
in the playoffs.
Anyway, but when I look at defense in the NFC East, that's what stands strong, and I can't say that any of these teams that I've mentioned have a strong defense.
I got to tell you this. And let me bring up geographics here, because
so do the Eagles.
Giants, New York. Eagles, Philly. Oh, the hell with Dallas. And then you got the Redskins, and then you got the Redskins in the nation's capital. I'm talking about blue collar. I don't need. Listen, when I think about Reuben Foster, it seemed like a nice guy when he was on the show the other week. We know. Let's hope that everything is all right. But what I'm trying to say is this: I want somebody nasty. Now Brian Dawkins. Yeah. Now Brian Dawkins is a nice guy and he speaks eloquently. He's a good, beautiful person. But in a suit. But when that brother put on that, I said what I'm talking about when he's talking.
Yes.
Not when he's playing.
He's in a suit.
Listen.
You want a hunter.
A suit. He's a headhunter. I was talking about in a suit. He's nice. But in a uniform, the brother was the hitman. I need somebody in Philadelphia or the Capitol.
Last thing.
Real quick,
I need somebody nasty.
I disagree about the assessment of the defense. I think the Giants have a good defense, and I think the Eagles at times last year were trending toward elite defense.
All right, let's leave it there.
I disagree.
Donovan sticking with us. When we come back, we have some players with character issues potentially being drafted tonight. We're going to get into some of the more controversial players in this year's draft. Should teams take a chance on them, and how will it affect their stock? And we are close to the best part of the show. We're heading to Mollywood. Get familiar. Some questions for Stephen A. and Max from our fans. First take on the road in Philly.
I mean, I'm stepping out of it. I'll be there.
This morning, take a listen.
The NFL is 70% African American. And, it really pains me to see a lot of young black players who, most of them grew up like I did, without a dad, without having much. I mean, my mother raised me on welfare. We didn't have much. And so I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to play professional football, and I took advantage of it. And to see some of these guys that really could care less about the opportunity to take care of their family or take care of their mother, who a lot of times is providing for them without much, really, really pains me.
Stephen A., I know how much you care about your community. What's your reaction to what you just heard from Booger McFarland?
I'm sad in that regard. It's painfully correct. Here's the deal. Black folks, particularly black men, ain't the only one to have issues. Latinos, whites, alcohol, drugs, etc. So I don't want anybody to interpret what I'm about to say in any way that it's a black problem. It's a problem. But I'm a black man. I love my people. And under no circumstances am I going to apologize by focusing on my community. Because when we consider America and the fact that the white populace in this country makes up 66% of the population, and the Latino population is not a dominant minority at 17%, and the black community in terms of numbers dissipating from 15% to 14% to 13% over the years, we seem to be going in the wrong direction. There's an elevated level of concern that me as a black man am going to express. And by that, I say this. If you out there smoking weed, for example, as much as I might not like that, that's not what I do, I'm not calling you on the carpet if you're not doing harm to yourself or anybody else. When I talk about stay off the weed, I am talking about players in the NFL, specifically, who religiously cost themselves millions upon millions of dollars because of absence of discipline. It's not about whether the rule is right or wrong. It's about you knowing what the rules are before you sign that contract to commit to play in this league under their stewardship, under the guise of their rules and regulations. And if you don't follow it, you know what the price is going to be, and you do it anyway. That is a problem. Other behavioral issues that we've seen encountered by a vast majority of African Americans in the National Football League.
It's a problem. It's also a problem that whether it's right or wrong, we're not seeing the imagery of folks from other ethnicities permeated over the airwaves. We see black, 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 black everywhere. And the fact is, that's a reality that we have to deal with as a community. One of the things that always made me proud, and Donovan and I have had our disagreements over the years, and I love him dearly, but he knows we have had our disagreements because I've always wanted him to speak out more because I knew he had a lot to say. Donovan has always been intelligent. Donovan has been well thought of. His family is phenomenal. And none of us are perfect. But by and large, when you consider the way he went about the business of conducting himself as a professional, I remember him taking hits from some of his own contemporaries, quietly, privately, anonymously, because they felt like he was too clean cut. These are the kind of things that we battle as a community time and time again, and we need to find a way to overcome it because the only people that we're hurting are ourselves.
Look, there's always this argument whenever this comes up. You hear two camps. You hear one camp talk about institutional unfairness, and you hear another camp talk about personal responsibility within a community. And both have valid points to make, and they're not mutually exclusive. But I think what's going on here, to Booger McFarland's point, is the league is 70% African American. And when you say the league, you're talking about 32 NFL teams with, like, when you count the practice squad, what, 75 players on each team? And then you're talking about all the college programs, because a lot of these issues are coming up right now. We're talking about draft picks. So we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people, many of whom come from disadvantaged backgrounds. So you have that. From that population, you will find some criminals. I mean, that's how it works on any population, white, black, or otherwise, but particularly given the circumstances described, especially when the history of this country has resulted, obviously, as we all know, in lower levels of education, per capita income, opportunity, etc., for African Americans. So you're dealing with a population where, like as in any population, you will find a criminal element. There are just too many people in that population to not have that. And then you have the proliferation of media. Everyone has a camera phone. You are going to catch bad behavior. It will be circulated. You will find it. In the league that's 70% African American, many of the perpetrators will be African American, especially when you consider the number of players coming from college and in the league. But there's also something else. When people roll their eyes and say, look at this opportunity that these young men are getting, and they're right. Of course, no one's entitled to anything. They're right. But you also have to ask, how many of these kids, many of them are, but many of them aren't, ready to be thrown into the deep end? When you consider the background and then the environment they're going to enter, including just college environment, how many are prepared for it, and by whom? Because oftentimes the funnel that gets them there are from people who don't have necessarily their best interests in mind, even though they're presented with an excellent opportunity. But they're funneled there by people who want to exploit them. Right? So I think all that adds up to, yeah, sometimes you're going to find video of misbehavior and accusations and even charges, and oftentimes they'll be true. And I don't know if it's more of a problem now than it's ever been, or if people, because of the proliferation of media, are more aware of it.
You know, I look at it in a sense, and it's unfair because obviously we do look up and we see black, 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 and you wonder, you know, and I think from an eye standpoint, I think people kind of take the understanding of thinking, you know, that it's all black people. And I'm with Stephen A. I only speak for my own race because, you know, when I look in the crowd today, I see my people. They're here to support us. And so they understand kind of the things that are asked of us. Stephen A. brought up the way I handle things. Now, I'm not perfect by any means. Everyone can kind of go in to find out what's happened to me or what I've been involved in. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the most perfect guy out here. But the most important thing, while I played, I understood the game. And the game can be played in many ways, not just on the field, but off the field. And for these young men coming into the draft, they need to understand how to play the game. You're not invincible. Just because people may say you're a top 10 pick doesn't mean you're untouchable. And I think for these kids that are in college, if they're smoking weed or if they're, whatever it is, drinking or whatever it may be, They don't understand the things that you have to do in order to be at that elite level and to be paid like an elite person, an elite player. And they're coming from backgrounds like Booger talked about, just like him. Now, I had my mother and father in the household. You know, things weren't always great. We didn't live in the suburban house that, you know, some people have been raised in. We moved into a suburban house because my dad worked overtime. My mom worked 2 jobs. But it was still one in which I was raised a different way. But you've still been raised by somebody, if it's by one parent or if it's by 2. There's things that you learn throughout the course of your childhood that you have to put in consideration when you get older, learning how to play the game. And that's doing the right things under the rules that are set for you to be successful.
And it's very important, as I say this, being from Hollis, Queens, New York City, growing up, being surrounded, drugs, drug dealers, the whole 9. They saved my life, kept me off the streets, even though they were on it. But let's be clear about something here. When Donovan talks about playing the game, people look at that as not being real.
Right.
It's being very real because the game is very real. You can't have an attitude. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, how I want, with whom I want, but could you give me some money? Doesn't work that way, because ultimately, in order to get gold, you have to capitulate to those who have it to give. And a lot of times, folks don't want to accept that. What I do love about the NFL, despite the fact that we might feel things about the weed policy and other things and their hypocrisy, what I do love is the fact that they are putting out on Front Street, you don't run our product. Yeah. We do, and if you want to participate, you're going to have to acquiesce. And that's a very important lesson for all communities with the generations on the come up to learn, because we got too many youngsters out here who want to do what the hell they want to do and don't believe they have to answer to anybody. That is not reality. That is not reality.
It's called Not For Long for a reason, right? The National Football League. But again, I want to reiterate, this isn't just a black or African American issue. The domestic violence and weed and all these different things we're seeing in this draft. All races are
but it is important that the black athlete recognize your face is the one that's being plastered all over the place. Black, 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 black everywhere. Right. We can sit up there and act like we don't notice, but it's very noticeable. Very.
We'll leave it there. Donovan's sticking with us. When we come back, we're going to talk more about quarterbacks and this year's NFL draft. We want you guys to keep weighing in on our poll. Which quarterback do you want taken by your team? These guys will make their choice after the break. First take on in South Philly. First take on the road for the NFL draft. We so appreciate our First Take fam here with us. And of course, Donovan McNabb, too. We asked our Twitter followers a little earlier in the show, which quarterback would you rather have? Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, or other? The results are in. So 64% would take Watson, 18% Trubisky, 18% other. I found that last one a bit interesting. Max, I want to start with you. Do you agree with Twitter that Watson is the way to go?
I do, particularly when it seems like you'd have to reach for Trubisky, and Watson may fall to who wants him, like Cleveland, for example, with the 12th pick. Look, I get the talent evaluators are looking at tape and video and projecting how it will play in the pros, and many of them prefer Trubisky. I get that. But I always listen to, like, the typical football analyst guy, and what you hear about guys like Ben Roethlisberger is that's just a football player. Not just a quarterback, but a football player out there making football plays. To me, that's Deshaun Watson. That guy is a football player making football plays. He's a competitor. He's a guy who not only is versatile. I mean, you read option, quarterback draws, whatever you want to do, buying time in the pocket. He can do a lot of that stuff. You can use him in those ways. But then he refuses to lose. Like, in the moment of truth, he gets it done time and again. Even in the national title game, you heard the broadcast. Boy, he's taking these hits. He just has a look of a guy who's taking like body shots. And this dude just picked himself up and willed his team to win. So if you give me the physical attributes and you give me that stuff, and it's not like a Tim Tebow level of technical flaws in his delivery and stuff. And by the way, even then, Tim Tebow went 7-4 and won a playoff game. But you give me all that stuff in a superior technical package, he's available. I'm taking him.
He's a winner.
I'm not going with the whole football, analyst that a lot of people like to say he's a grinder. He's a film watcher. He's so smart and intelligent. Look, this man is a winner. And that's what it's all about. Being a quarterback, when you're coming from a winning tradition, you understand what it takes to get your team to that position. And not only that, but to get over that hump, that is Deshaun Watson. And the numbers speak for himself. Everything that we've seen throughout his career, the kid continued to improve each and every year. High expectations came into it this year because he went to the national championship. Everyone thought that they were going to get back. And the reason that they got back to that position was because of Deshaun Watson. Now, we can look at Trubisky. Yeah, there may be an upside because we don't know. We haven't seen enough. Teams haven't been able to watch the film and be able to bounce back now in his second season as a starter and be able to attack him. So we don't know. Patrick Mahomes, I look at him and I say he's got more of an upside than Trubisky because of his ability to make plays, extend plays. He's got a strong arm. He can play from the pocket, and you've seen the plays that he was able to make. The only problem with Mahomes is, he's coming from a pedigree like we've seen, Johnny Manziel. That was what Johnny Manziel was. It was a guy that can throw it from anywhere, but more importantly, he was getting outside the pocket and making great plays. But that doesn't work in the NFL. You have to be able to work the 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drop. The read option, to me, is more like the wildcat. It shouldn't even been in the NFL because it's killing quarterbacks and it's killing the development of that quarterback. You have to be able to turn around, hand it off to the running back, or drop back and get it to your tight end or wide receiver. Hit that 18 to 20-yard deep out cut. Be able to put that foot in the ground in 5th step and hit that speed out.
One thing doesn't mean you can't do the other.
Well, the thing is, it's like a computer. If you're constantly putting things into that computer, that's what it's going to be used to. So if you're a read option quarterback, what do people like to do? Label them as read option quarterbacks. So now you have these mastermind offensive coordinators say, I have a guy that I can put in different situations, a la RG3. RG3 was playing from the pocket at Baylor. He had the ability to get outside the pocket. That was a bonus. But when he got to Washington, that's what Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan put him in that box, and all of a sudden it became a read option until he got hurt. Then he came out and said, I want to be a pocket passer.
And didn't have the reps in at an early enough phase.
Well, you have to be able to train these quarterbacks. Just because they won the Heisman don't mean that they're great quarterbacks. The league is faster. Everyone is smarter. You're playing against grown men, guys with 3, 4 kids at home, and I'm going to look at you and say, hey, if you ain't got it right, you got to go. I got to feed my family. I don't care how old you are. So you have to develop these young quarterbacks to be what they need to be successful.
But Trubisky's your third option.
He's my third option, absolutely.
Here's what disgusts me about this subject. If I were Deshaun Watson, or if I were a quarterback on the collegiate level and I had any cachet, I had the ability to sit up there and tell NFL scouts, NFL teams, y'all could kiss where you know what, I would do it. And here's why. Because if you are Deshaun Watson, who in 2 national championship games passed for over 850 yards, won a national championship, was 32-3 as a starting quarterback in big-time college football, and has proven himself to be a winner. You got a coach in Dabo Swinney calling this dude the Jordan of the draft in terms of not just his ability, but his class, where his head is at, his intelligence, his leadership ability, and all of these intangibles. And I'm going to drop in the draft because of some dude in the Tar Heels. It ain't basketball we're talking about here. This is football. The Tar Heel. When the hell have they been in a national championship picture? And this dude starts 13 games? Okay, and we didn't even hear much about him until the damn draft was approaching. And I'm going to lose. With all I've accomplished, if I'm Deshaun Watson, with all that I've accomplished in college football, I get relegated for him? And why am I talking to you? Why am I wasting my time? Why am I getting half naked, having you measure my vertical leaps, how much I run and all of that stuff, my eating habits, who I date, getting all in my... Why am I even talking to you if I got to sit up here and be relegated for some dude who was a damn no-name until the draft was approaching because he had 13 starts? I wouldn't even show up. Just draft me. Just draft me.
Deshaun
Watson,
not. To me, it would be the first quarterback I would take. But the thing about the NFL is it's ruthless in terms of this stuff. They really don't care what you did on one level. If they evaluate you and go,
then why I got to go through all of that?
He's not accurate enough with the deep ball. That guy's more accurate. That's the way.
All I'm trying to say is this: I should not have. Right. If I'm a Deshaun Watson, I should not have. I'm not talking about just him. I'm talking about all the Deshaun Watsons of the world. I should not have to be subjected to the personal elements of scrutiny. Damn it, watch the tape. You saw what I did. Make your call. You got plenty of video. That's really what it is.
And the funny thing about this, and being an African-American quarterback, I'm with you, Stephen A., it's always something negative that they want to bring up, the accuracy. But they bring up the mobility and how our arm strength is. The thing that reminds me of this particular draft, it goes back to Cam Newton. Cam Newton. When Cam Newton, all of a sudden, he was the best player in college football.
Number one.
Won a national championship. But who was he battling with? Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine
Gabbert. As Stephen A. was, Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah.
That's Trubisky to me.
Yep. I mean, although Ben Roethlisberger kind of came out of nowhere and went high up in the draft, and people really weren't talking a lot about him till right before the draft.
Yeah, but he went to Miami of Ohio. Here's a guy who went to North Carolina.
Yep. And by the way, Carson Wentz, kind of the same thing, and Carson Wentz balled out last year.
North Dakota State, though.
Sometimes they're right.
North Dakota State won.
All right, Donovan, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Give it up for Donovan McNabb. We'll see you soon. Up next, my favorite part of the show, we're taking a trip to Mollywood, where the good people of Philadelphia get to put these two on the hot seat. First take on the road for the NFL Draft. Shout out to the ladies. First take is in Philly, of course, because the NFL Draft. But right now, folks, you are taking a trip to Mollywood, where our first take fan gets to put these two lovelies on the spot. First up, we have Vernon Hubbard. Vernon, come on, a Cowboys fan with some nice frames.
Here you go, Stephen A. That's for you.
Stephen A. He won't even make eye contact, so disrespectful. Vernon, we know the draft worked out pretty well for your boys last season. What's your question you got for the guys?
What position do the Cowboys need to draft tonight?
First things first, I don't care. Secondly,
respect the man.
Secondly, excuse me.
The man.
No, I'm not respecting any Cowboy fan, particularly a Cowboy fan that shows up in Philadelphia with a Cowboy jersey on. The Cowboys need every damn thing on defense. An edge rusher, somebody that plays safety. And by the way, somebody that you can rely upon to stay off the weed. Yeah. Security.
Stop it.
Get him out of here. Bye.
Please answer the question.
I say the Cowboys with their first-round pick should draft, I don't know, a punter. Something that doesn't matter so they won't be any good. They need a defensive backfield, and more than anything, they need an edge rusher. So edge rusher one, and they just got decimated in the defensive backfield, which wasn't very good anyway, so they got to replace.
Thank you for being a professional answer.
Maybe they need somebody with diluted samples.
Thank you so much. You are unbelievable. Kelsey, come on up. Here we go. Now we got a Philly fan. Good to have a lady here with us. But I think you have some love for someone today. Timmy Teebs. First take loves.
Well, that's Stephen A.'s dear friend, as he'll tell you.
That's
with friends like that, you don't need enemies.
My
words
friend.
of Houdini.
My friend.
Kelsey, it's all you.
My friend.
Tim Tebow went 3 for 4 yesterday. Should they call him up till AA?
By the way, yes, they should. He's now, I think, 9 for 20, and he's hitting with extra base power. Yeah, he's hitting the ball like single-A pitching.
Leader of the Tebow fan club.
Single-A pitching ain't getting him out. And even if it's a mistake, oh, he just got hot, and then whatever. Let's see Tebow, how he does on the next level. He seems to be doing just fine on this one.
I give him a lot of credit where credit is due. I'm proud of him. He's playing decently enough. He's showing that he's improving, and he's been working on it. And by the way, he brings more attention to the minor leagues than you'd ever get, because who pays attention to the minor leagues? So I give credit where credit is due, but more importantly than anything else, he's my friend.
Right.
And I just want him to be okay. So as long as that's all right and he's not throwing footballs, I'm good.
Kelsey, appreciate you. Fly,
CBA
Eagles,
loves
fly.
the kids, and Tim Tebow is his friend.
That's right.
So up next, I have a little surprise for this man to my left, Max Kellerman. I know you love surprises.
Yes, let's go.
Can our next guest please come out?
What? Oh. Tell me it's Odell Beckham. Tell me it's Eli Manning. Who is it?
It's your man crush.
What?
I've heard his name repeatedly on this show.
Well,
Eagles offensive tackle Lane Johnson.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness.
This is so good. Oh, the poor man's been sweating the whole time. Thank you so much.
There he is. Going on.
Do you know how much he loves you?
No, wait a minute. Let's get the record straight.
Yes.
I despise this man. He plays for the Eagles.
Oh, you love him.
But I have to admit, he was the difference maker on that line for that offense, just as I said he would be.
What's up, Lane?
What's up? Glad to be out of there, man. It was hot in there for about 10 minutes, so I'm trying to cool down.
We appreciate that. You got a question for the guys?
What are the Eagles going to do tonight in the draft?
Well, first of all, congratulations. I disagree as much as big time as I know you are. I do not believe that there should be that big of a difference with the Eagles offense just because you are gone, okay? I don't believe that. As big time as you are.
But there was.
Big
You
time
want to refute the evidence?
Listen. I saw wide receivers not getting open. I saw wide receivers dropping passes. I saw a couple of things. But
Lane, let me help you out here. Here's what happened. When he was playing, there was the Eagles team that was outscoring opponents that was looking like they were going to give the Cowboys run. Then he wasn't playing for a while. We all know why. And the Eagles couldn't buy a win. Then he came back, and they looked really good at the end of the season again. So, like, what do you think it is? There's a tipping point on the O-line.
Some people thought it was a play calling of Doug Peterson. Some people thought it was a few things. I know you're big time. I know you're big time. I know you're big time, but you need more help than one person on the offensive line. Just stop it. Now, to answer your question, here's what you really, really need. You got Alshon Jeffrey. That's going to help. It would help if you're drafted a wide receiver like Mike Williams. But if Jamal Adams falls to that 14th slot, to get a guy like him, that would be big time as well.
Need help in the secondary, right? What do you want? What do you want him to get?
I mean, personally, I think, tonight we're going to be looking secondary, maybe tomorrow, maybe looking at a running back, and then after that, I really don't know. That's just my personal opinion.
I believe in Carson Wentz, though. I believe in Carson Wentz.
Yes. We're all believers.
The dude is big time. I like the fact. I like the fact that you got Alshon Jeffrey. Nelson Aguilar, I mean, this dude was a starter and got bitched. Nobody brings that up. There were receivers that weren't showing up now.
Yeah, and we'll see what Torrey Smith can do, but they addressed receiver. They had no playmakers. Now they got a receiver. I agree they need a running back, but first, someone in the defensive backfield. So, they need a secondary player who can really cover.
Do you have anybody on the offensive line as good as you?
I know somebody better than me, Jason Peters.
Take the mic, Lane.
That's true. And it's very humble and nice of you to
just got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
That's right.
Nowhere close. So.
Why don't the offensive line, why don't those guys get credit? Like, even Jeff Saturday's on the show, and I'm talking about you're going to be the difference. And even Jeff Saturday's like, look, Max, I love offensive linemen, but you're crazy. Lane Johnson's not going to be the difference, and sure enough, you were.
It's just, there's nothing sexy about a 300-pound man, to be honest with you. We're not catching passes. We're not throwing touchdowns, but when you go look at the salary, I mean, the offensive tackles, they get paid pretty high to protect, an important man in the quarterback. So it's often overlooked with the offensive line. Without the offensive line, there is no offense.
What are y'all going to – what are you trying to say, Lane Judge? You trying to say now that you back and Peters is there with you and you got Carson Wentz and now you acquired Alshon Jeffrey? Are you trying to say that y'all are going to win a division?
That's exactly what I'm saying to you right now. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Lane, appreciate you. Thank you so much. You're #1 fan from New York.
A pox on your house, Lane Johnson. The Giants fan.
Thank you. When we come back, we're going to give the floor to our very own Stephen A. Smith, reminisce on his 17 years in Philadelphia, where he started his career. First take on the road. Welcome back to Chicky and Pete's in South Philly. First take on the road, of course, for the NFL Draft. Now, the first round kicks off tonight, 8 Eastern. I cannot wait. The first ever outdoor event. And as many of you know, this city is near and dear to Stephen A.'s heart. He started his career here, 17 years in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Inquirer, the last 7 years as a columnist. What are your thoughts? What's it like for you to be back here in Philly for this kind of event?
Listen, everybody knows I'm a native New Yorker. And so it's hold on for a second. I got something I want to say to all of y'all. Because even though I'm a native New Yorker, I've often said this. I owe so much to a guy like Allen Iverson, who was a superstar in this city. And somebody that trusted me in ways that typically athletes don't trust journalists. But what made Allen Iverson and I both great in the eyes of whomever was this city. This city is one of the greatest sports towns in America. This city knows its sports. It knows what it's talking about. More importantly, it cares and it holds people accountable. And when you think about a sports town, I don't care what anybody said. Regardless of what I was able to do, regardless of what a lot of guys have been able to do throughout their athletic careers, if you don't have people in a community who care and care so much to the point where it forces you to care or it'll push you out, it elevates you or it exposes you. And not many sports towns in America can claim it does that. Philadelphia is one of them. Everybody talks about Santa Claus and all of this other stuff, booing Santa Claus. Forget all of that. Philadelphia is one of the greatest sports towns, and while I'm here, I just wanted to say thank you to the city of Philadelphia. It's a second home to me. I love y'all, and I owe y'all so much, and I just wanted to say that. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but I've arranged for a surprise for Molly.
Oh, I did not know this.
What?
Molly swears that she never had a cheesesteak.
Oh.
That's about to change.
Oh,
that's about to change. And I have a courtesy of Pat's, Gino's, and right here at Chicky Pete's. Chicky and Pete.
You know a girl can eat.
This is a cheesesteak.
I have a question.
I love it.
Oh, no, you got to eat.
I love it. I don't have a napkin?
I have a question for Stephen A. because, you know, it's like a homecoming of
Don't judge me, guys.
Is it embarrassing at all to get smoked in all these debates by me in front of your adopted hometown crowd?
They know better. They know that you're delusional. They just forgive you because you're a very likable guy.
Yeah.
I now get it.
You get it?
Oh, my God.
Take another bite.
I get it.
Take another bite.
See, I see there are 3 of them.
Take another bite.
I see they brought 3 out.
That's right. Pat's, Gino's, and Chicky and Pete's. All 3 of them.
You guys,
can't lose.
You guys aren't playing around.
That's right.
This is the real deal. Thank you to all of you guys for coming out. Thank you so much. Tomorrow we're going to be back here.
It's all right to swallow it. It's all right.
I'm trying.
Suck it up.
Carson Wentz will be here. LaShawn McCoy. Malcolm Jenkins. So we're looking forward to it. And of course, thanks to Donovan for being out here as well. Are you guys going to get involved, or am I just going to be a fat kid on my own? Max? You're getting after it, too.
You don't have to tell me twice.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.